Hi guys, welcome to Invest2140. My name's Adam. I'm going to help you understand this week's weekly roundup from money, macros and markets. So without further ado, let's get into it. Obviously none of this is financial advice, just a guy on the internet. Always look after your own investments and your own money. Want to do a big shout out this week for the question from Paul Clark. He said here, I'm looking at adding some Ethereum to my portfolio. So a video around that would be super helpful. And thanks very much, Paul, for the question. As with everybody, putting your questions on there, hit your likes, your subscribes, and hit the notifications so we can keep this going. Without further ado, let's look at the quick question. So Ethereum for your portfolio. My personal belief would be you might want to stay away from Ethereum this bull run, this cycle. Only because if we've got a slide further on that we're going to look at, that we'll look at the cycle this time around for Ethereum. We haven't even hit an all-time high yet. So whereas if you look at things like Bitcoin and Solana, they've already smashed their all-time highs and only going to keep going over the next 3 to 9 months. Whereas Ethereum, I think, is going to struggle. We've got a slide here that shows Solana smashing the previous blockchain records. So we can see volume 27 billion for Solana over 24 hours and 90 billion almost in 7 days. And you look at Ethereum, it's much further down. Don't get me wrong, on the previous cycle, Ethereum was where it was all at with all the NFT action, but development wise as well. But this time round, it's definitely looking to be the Solana's the one where you want to go. It's even been nicknamed the ETH killer. Another slide here showing us that the Ethereum ETFs are nearing net outflow status again, with Grayscale's ETH seeing significant sell pressures. We've got 41.8% of all ETH shares having already exited. So this will shift highlights declining confidence in Ethereum's products and could also signal bullish sentiment for Solana as an alternative, which is what we've been saying. Hence why it's known as the ETH killer. We've also got this one here from Solana Floor. Sol smokes ETH over 30 days in fees for the first time. Again, we're starting to see all the fees surpass Ethereum's. And ETH dominance is dropping off like a cliff. So this one dates back from July 20. You can see it all the way through 2022, 21, where it really hit its peak. And then as it comes into, say, 2024, middle of this year, it's really starting to fall off. So where does that take us to? Let's have a quick look at two charts. So you can see here, all-time highs for Ethereum back in the previous cycle was 4,750 odd. Previous cycle for Solana topped out around 260. And this cycle, obviously, we've almost been up at 300 for Solana. Again, I can only see it going one way. As Solana apps capture around 73% of total crypto market earnings, Solana market cap of around 100 billion versus ETH's market cap of 358 billion. Solana is around 32% of the ETH market cap, but it's 15 times cheaper. Because it's so much cheaper, obviously there's going to be a lot more volatility and potential for upside. With over 40,000 different cryptocurrencies, Solana currently handles 67% of all transactions, which is massive. So you think about where all the activities happen, all the dApps, all the users. It takes me down to this conclusion that the winner's going to take most. Hence, Solana is most likely going to continue to be known as the ETH killer, and is most likely to outperform ETH this bull run. So, yes, you could put ETH in your, in your pot. You can mix it up, but I would definitely be looking at Solana instead, to be honest. So let's go into the weekly news. So let's quick look at the stock market heat map. We can see that obviously a few are green, a few reds, Amazon's up, Nvidia took a massive hit. We'll touch on that in a second. But in all, this week it hasn't been too bad, although it's going to be quite bad going into Monday morning's markets. What with the tariffs from Trump going on to many different countries, that's really going to unsettle a lot of the market makers. So prepare for a pretty rubbish Monday, I would have thought. The reason Nvidia was down 20% because of the DeepSeek AI, which actually turned out to be quite not as bad as we thought it would be, but it did wipe out 279 billion of market capital for Nvidia, which is the largest single day market cap fall in global equity markets through history ever. So this chart showing us there, Meta, Amazon, Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, Aramco, Tesla, Intel and Alibaba, how much they've lost previously, and what happened to Nvidia's, really did hit. So we can see the market fear and greed is turned up to neutral over the last week or so. It was previously more around the fear, 34, 37. The week before that it was into 46. It's slowly starting to creep up into the neutral zone. Remember, when we want to be buying is going to be down in extreme fear, and when we want to be selling is in extreme greed. Okay, crypto market heat map doesn't look too great, does it? It didn't end very well. We've seen at the moment we're seeing it play out with the market makers going into liquidity hunting. Bitcoin as it stands is around 99.2, I believe. So yeah, it hasn't been the best week for crypto, but these things are peaks and troughs, and it's going to pick back up again, I'm sure. Crypto fear and greed ticking up. So we can see we're now currently back at 54. It was sitting higher. Go back only a week or so ago, it's at 61. But I reckon this is going to see us creeping up again towards the latter part of next week. In the US, the reason we look at the UK, the Eurozone and the US is because personally, historically, most of my investments have been on the US stock market. They've just outperformed the London Stock Exchange for the last 20 years. So I wouldn't see why you'd want to be investing in UK stocks. As much as I'd love to, it just isn't where the capital gains have been. So hence why we look at some UK, some Euros info, news, but predominantly the US. So again, looking at the US economy, it had a pretty poor end to 2024 with GDP tanking. Again, why do we look at things like GDP and the macro and economy? Because it all drives the stock market. So if the economy is performing poorly and the macro is not looking great, stocks go down. Vice versa. If those things are performing well, then obviously stock markets will do well. So that's why we keep an eye on it. So it isn't just looking at the stock market alone and technical analysis. You want to look at the broader picture of the macro. Fed, the US Fed, printing like mad, and they printed 241 billion over the last 2-3 days of the week. So again, more liquidity being pumped into the economy. And again, we find that obviously when liquidity goes higher, it works well for Bitcoin. We had another fantastic Fed manufacturing index. Okay, this one here from Micro to Macro. Jesse, my man, saying that the Dallas Fed manufacturing has been the best it has since October 2021. Again, last week on the previous video, you would have seen that the Philly Fed, they had their best since 2018. So is this a lead into the Trump revitalization of the manufacturing industry within US? Possibly. I mean, the fact we've had 2 fantastic reads in 2 or 3 weeks now, you'd start to think so. So that's positive news. Moving into a bit more crypto and Bitcoin related, we got Cynthia urging for a strategic Bitcoin reserve. She's recommending buying 200,000 Bitcoins per year for the next 5 years and holding for at least 20. The reason they're looking to do this is obviously with the spiraling debt across all major economies. They're looking to offset that debt with the upside that Bitcoin can bring, being that it's such a hard, fantastic asset. Personally speaking, again, not financial advice, but Cynthia seems to think so. Why is Bitcoin the hardest asset out there? Because there's only a finite amount. So just to go over a bit of the Bitcoin basics. Every 4 years there's a halving cycle, and every time that cycle occurs, the amount that can be produced per day is halved. And then going back a year or so, it was 900 Bitcoin per day. That's now down to 450 Bitcoin per day that can be mined. What does that mean? So that means that because there's only a finite amount, there's only ever going to be 21.8 million Bitcoin available. Of that 21.8, there's probably around 4 to 5 million that have just been lost over time. Some that have been lost with Satoshi himself, some that have been lost through people just losing keys and hard drives and PCs and whatnot. So if you think there's only going to be, say, 15 million Bitcoin in circulation at any one time, That's why everyone's just racing to get theirs now. Obviously, if you've been on board for many, many years, fantastic, well done. For those that aren't into any Bitcoin or Bitcoin related trades, you might want to think about doing it. It's a good hedge against inflationary measures and government debasement, which is another aspect we'll look at in another video. But right now, let's just look at some of the key information here about Bitcoin. That 94% of Bitcoin 94% of all Bitcoin have already been issued. There's 20 million Bitcoin, or just under 20 million Bitcoin existing at the moment. Remember, there's only going to be 21.8 million in existence ever to be mined. That's just over 1 million Bitcoin left to be mined. And again, the daily issuance on Bitcoin at the moment is currently 450. In another 3.5 years, that will drop down to 225, and so on. So this one here from Vivek, fantastic. That he's managed to pop this one up. So this is basically just proving that Russia are state mining Bitcoin now. They had been for ages, we presume, but the excess energy, the Rossetti power company, they're going to be pumping into Bitcoin, which takes us down to the scarcity side of it discussion again, and over the counter desk balance that is dwindling. Back in July, we can see here there was around about 416,000 Bitcoins over the desk available, and that was in July. Then in August, that's dropped down to 368. If you can imagine that the difference between exchange and over the counter is the exchange will be things that things like Bitcoin held on Coinbase, for example. So although they're held on Coinbase, which is an exchange, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be available to purchase, or they're going to be, or that they'll want to be sold. So although there's around 2 million on exchanges, the actual OTC desks, where your Michael Saylors of MSTR and IBITS, BlackRock's fund will go and buy from OTC desks, we can see that they're starting to dwindle, and there's talk that they're down to around 200,000 now. Here we go. We've got Tom Lee on this one, talking about that the Bitcoin don't have enough supply to meet the high demand, and that it's about to go parabolic. So again, another big players. So Tom Lee from Fundstrat is incredibly useful to follow. Highly recommend it if you do. Another one that leads us into why I think there's going to be a supply crunch. In my last video, I was talking about Utah, Florida, a few other states, Oklahoma, jumping in on the whole Bitcoin buildings. We've now got 19 states that have actually signed up or in the process of signing up to keep Bitcoin as a reserve asset, which is huge. So once they start taking that on board and purchasing that, there's definitely not going to be enough Bitcoin to go around, which is why Michael Saylor of MSTR has been holding and buying at every opportunity he can, and still to date has never sold one of the Bitcoins he's purchased. Bitcoin is now a top 10 global currency. We've got BlackRock's Larry Fink. He says he's wrong when he's saying Bitcoin is a currency of fear. That's what he used to say, and now he believes, obviously now that he's obviously buying 10 to the dozen, he believes it's now going to be going up to around 700k. So what he hasn't done is put a time frame on that. So is that going to be this cycle? Highly unlikely, although some people are banding that figure around. Again, personally, price targets, we'll look at that a little bit further on in the chat. Norway made a very large purchase of the MicroStrategy Corporation. So MSTR, again, just for transparency, I do hold MSTR. I'll go through my allocations later on, something we've got to add into the videos now. Just for transparency, so you can see what I hold and why I might be interested in looking into it and giving you the news, whether it be good or bad. But they went and they spent a considerable amount, 514 million on MicroStrategy. And remember this one from James at Invest Answers. He's got this very brief slide here that says, remember that 1 in 500 get Bitcoin. So if only 1 in 500 get and understand Bitcoin, only one of those only 1 in 50 Bitcoiners get MSTR. And the reason we say about getting MSTR is because it can be a little bit confusing about how it works and operates, but it's known as the glorified money printer. In essence, what they do is they will dilute shares, borrow more money to purchase Bitcoin, which in turn then obviously pumps up the price of Bitcoin and also pumps up the price of the underlying asset that they hold. So again, then increasing the price of the company, and then they rotate and do exactly the same thing again. Is it volatile? Yes, incredibly. Do you need to make sure you've got your tap dancing shoes on? Yes. If you think about Bitcoin itself being incredibly volatile, MicroStrategy is like a 2 times play on that. So if Bitcoin can increase in 10% in a day or two, MicroStrategy can increase or decrease 20% in a day or two. So again, great fun to play with. Obviously, watch your charts, look at your indicators, and make sure you've got your alerts on. But it can be a great one to get on board with. Micro to macro here, Jesse talking about one of the many reasons why the traditional banking system is going to be replaced. Someone just moved 1,300 Bitcoin worth 130 million, and it was pretty much instantaneous, and they paid $1 to do so. With transfer fees like that, you can see why the TradFi, the traditional financing sector, TradFi, is going to be replaced. Again, it's not so much a matter of time. It's going to be that they're going to incorporate, I believe, the blockchain into transactions. It's just a lot faster. MSTR status. So this one here from James Van Stratum. Saylor was in a rush before Trump even won the US election. The 2021 plan was executed on October 30th. The price on the day saw MSTR up while BT went down. MSTR now are roughly 29% of the way through their preferred stock offering, 74% of the way through the ATM offering, and that's the one that's really been hurting the stock price of late. So again, almost through that pain. And then they're 14% of the way through the convertible debt. So they've got a long way to go through the convertible debt offering. So again, if you hold MSTR, this is nothing but good news. If you don't hold MSTR, again, it's well worth looking into it, but just make sure that you're very mindful of the volatility. 6,000 Bitcoin smash buy incoming after QT period. So this one here, MicroStrategy again, almost 600 million to buy Bitcoin after a stock offering was oversubscribed by nearly 3x. So again, fantastic news. You can't get enough people from the bond market to buy into this at the moment, even to the point where instead of it just being 0% finance, it's going to be negative finance, in the sense that they're going to pay to come and take part of this. So it's really interesting. Watch this space, look at the news. One more quick one. JUP fees of late have been absolutely on fire. So again, if you look at the different cryptocurrencies out there, different blockchains, layer 1s, layer 2s, you've got one called Jupiter, and it is absolutely killing all the fees out there. We're going to jump over to some Tesla news now. Again, the reason I'm starting to look into some more Teslas, I used to hold Tesla quite well. When it had its large increase, I rotated out. But looking to rotate back into Tesla once Bitcoin's made a bit more of a move. So again, I'll look at my rotation methods a little bit later on in the presentation. Revenue wise, 25.7 billion, gross profit 4.2, operating 1.6, net profit of 2.3. The reason I'm starting to look into this again is because they've got so many different revenue streams that I can see are individually trillion dollar asset revenue streams. So with that in mind, let's look at a few of them. Again, they've got their Optimus robot. So this one from James at Invest2140, the most significant development in human history and why Tesla leads the way. Their Optimus robot, they are going to be creating a hell of a lot of them, and I'm trying to think if it's 5,000 so far, and then 50,000 by the end of this year. They've got 22 degrees of movement in the hands. Just really interesting. This one about the bots. How can Tesla keep pumping out so many bots, and how many optimize? So by the end of this year, Elon wants 10,000 bots. I knew there was a figure around 10,000. And then by 2026, 50,000, 2027, 500,000. And what it's going to be in the end, it will be robots making robots, which obviously is just going to be a crazy multiplier. Another play that they've got is their energy juggernaut, 10 billion at the moment with 30% margins, which is astronomical. and it's only going one way. You can see it's really going parabolic. So this is going to be another driver for the revenue streams and the huge profit margins that Tesla are going to be announcing year on year. We've got Kathy Wood here talking about a Tesla stock surpassing 2,000 by 2030. And she sees the self-driving being the biggest AI project in the world. Obviously, we know that every Tesla has the cameras on board, and they've been logging all that data for years and years and years. Talking about rotation, so again, a few points here that we want to be looking at from my point of view. So a few things that have come up is the refresh Model Y looks fantastic. Shanghai Mega is online. The new affordable models coming out later on in this year. You've got unsupervised robo-taxi fleet launch at some point this year. Optimus production, 600 per week by the end of the year. Again, that's unconfirmed, but we did look at this previous slide. Between 2,000 and 10,000 by the end of the year. Cybercab this year. We've got Grok being integrated into FSD. So Grok AI platform, which is part of the XAI platform, integrated into FSD, so full self-drive for people that use Teslas. Again, I have a Tesla myself. In the UK, don't have full self-drive, but one day hopefully. The Giga Nevada starting semi-mass production by the end of the year 2025. And again, just talking about possible price targets, looking at the charts, the previous history, every 4-year cycle, there's a massive upside. With everything that's going on for the Tesla, or going on from Tesla, I can see why there might be another crazy banana zone coming up. So personal allocations for myself, just to be transparent and open so everyone can see what I've got in there. At the moment, I'm 36% on MSTR, 35% on Sol. I've got an 8% in Neptune Digital. Again, if you look at Bitcoin and Solana proxies, they hold an amount of Bitcoin, they hold an amount of Solana, and they also hold an amount of SpaceX as well. So that's a good SpaceX proxy to be able to get into. I've also got MST3, which is a 3 times play on MSTR. Only a small amount because it's a leverage play. Very aware of the fees and the resetting of the costs, and it will slowly erode my capital allocation that I put into it. But for short term, say anything from 10 to 40 days, that's what I'm looking for because it has been beaten up of late. And then 8% Jupiter. And then we've got Sol Perps, Radium, ArcG Investments, Zeus, Fartcoin, and AI16Z. They're the main ones at the moment. Again, pretty much all crypto related. A little bit of sad news. So again, we've got to be aware of the liquidity hunters, the market makers. We can see it's happening right now. Again, I just cut this slide probably about 30 minutes ago. So it has tanked and dropped from 105 down to 97.6. I reckon it could probably drop around to the 92 like it did a couple of weeks back again. So just beware. Again, if you're doing Sol Perps and things like that, always make sure you got your liquidity and your leverage set to around no more than say 3.3, 3.5. I see some people doing 10, 20% leverage, and that's frightening. They will get hunted, and they, unless you keep throwing money at it, you're probably going to be liquidated. This one made me laugh. I forgot about this one. So never spend your Bitcoin, always spend your fiat currency. Shout back to 2010 when the chap here spent 10,000 Bitcoin for a pizza. And obviously in today's money, that's going to be one hell of an expensive pizza. That's it really from this week. So thanks very much for listening. Again, any questions, always pop them in the comments. I'll try to reply to everybody. But yeah, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.